Ah, much better. All right, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. No, no. Hello, Geek Workshop. I was just resetting my stream. I didn't like the orientation. Hello, Jesus. Jesus. Why do I keep saying Jesus? I am so sorry, dude. I should know better. Alright, so this needs to shift a little. I'm almost ready. Today's prompt on Inktober is sword. So, let's see what I can do with that. It's going, yeah, I'm live. I'm live, baby. Ooh-wee. Who else is on? I've got Geek Workshop. I've got Jesus. Nice. Well, that's really kind of you, Geek Workshop. All I can say is I'll just try to earn that like by creating videos every week. So, let's see what I got here. Maybe right about here. So today I spent the day at New York Comic Con. It was pretty great. Hello, comic book guy. And all I can say though is, you know, that's a big show. There's a lot to see, a lot to do. It's very spread out. It's very crowded, and it takes a lot out of you. I mean, I think even if you were just tabling there, it's going to take a lot out of you. And whew. Took a lot out of me. Today's prompt is sword, so I am gonna try to draw a sword. Sword-wielding badass, I guess. Just give me a minute here. But it's kind of nice now. I'm back at the hotel. It's the end of what's been a long day. And ready to sort of semi-relax with some drawing time. Chatting with all of you. Hello, CSNG. Who else do we have here? Aku Lukman says, will there be a video on Comic-Con? Sort of. Hi Sigmigs. Yeah, I'm using my badge as a straight edge because I really don't have much else to use. I certainly don't have a ruler here. Last year I did a comic tropes video on what you could see at pretty much any given convention. So I sort of did a comic tropes on Comic-Cons themselves. This year I did record something at Comic-Con for the show for a future episode, not like this week's episode or even next week's. It's upcoming, but it's very different. It's more just because of what you have access to at Comic-Con, which is cosplay. So it's not really about cosplay. It's just tried to take a little advantage. So I recorded something small at Comic-Con for a future episode, not one that's coming up anytime too soon.
Or maybe
My what?
it looked like your paper was cropped off at the top, but I guess it's because you have the windows scrolled down.
Yeah. Hello, Matt Lurch. Hello, McNuggy. And hello, Gurzagors. Wow. Will I do a Greg Land video? You know, Yeah, that's probably a pretty good idea. That seems like it would lend itself to something a little on the funnier side, because there's a fair amount you could critique about him. Even his fans will admit, I think, that there's stuff you could easily do about Greg Land, and it might also be an opportunity to finally talk about cross-gen some, because people clearly want me to discuss that a bit. So maybe I'd discuss a book from his cross-gen run. Not exactly 100% sure where I'd schedule that at this point in time, but yeah, I'm definitely, I have interest in doing something like that. Yeah. In fact, as I'm talking about it now, I'm more interested than I was before. That seems like it could actually be kind of a pretty funny topic. So we'll see. Something that's likely to happen, I suppose. Cheddar Monkey asks, drawing Black Knight? Nope, it's not Black Knight, but maybe after I sketch in his head it'll make sense. Points to the first person who correctly guesses the character I'm drawing.
What can you redeem your points for?
You can redeem your points with one another for being cool and guessing quickly what the amateur artist is drawing. Lion-O. Not Lion-O. That's an interesting guess. I could sort of see where that could come from. Just got to give him a few fundamentals before I get too far. He's got sort of a confusing, or at least intricate outfit. It's not Jack Sparrow. That's Chrissy in the background. My fiance is here with me. She doesn't know who I'm drawing. Why would she? Why would she? Prince Valiant. Oh, huh, He-Man. No, this guy's probably a little leaner than He-Man, so maybe I'm drawing him a little too buff. We'll see. We'll see. I'm just throwing in a few wrinkles and stuff to his clothes that I want to get right, and throw in some of this because he's got a cloak, and that's a belt. Goes around like that. Black, so I'll just do an X there. I would say that this sort of goes over like that. Aragorn? Aragorn is closer, but Aragorn isn't quite right. But Aragorn is the closest guess so far. It's not from Lord of the Rings. Is it the Brave Knight Sir Robin from Monty Python? No. But now that you say that, I wish it was. Why didn't I think of that? Run away! Run away! Brave, 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 brave Sir Robin. With his head bashed in and his eyes plucked out and his innards. Made him too strong. Who's Jon Snow? Oh, I say yes, McNuggy and Aqua, you got it. I'm going to try to do a take on Jon Snow.
Yay!
And the beast died when the animator keeled over dead. Yeah, it's not Marvel. This is Game of Thrones. And the focus is going to be on, I think, Longclaw. If I can do it justice. Because it's not that big, the way I'm drawing it. We shall see. All right, let's start throwing in some details with ink and see what I can do tonight. Comic book guy throws +1 power axe. Wow. Be careful. Don't nobody get hurt. Then I'd feel guilty. Has anybody else out there ever been to this particular Comic-Con that I've been spending my weekend at? The New York Comic-Con. Just curious who else knows what I'm talking about. What's the coolest cosplay you've seen so far at Comic-Con, asks Geek Workshop. Well, personally, I got a tremendous kick out of seeing somebody dressed up as Alf. So I got a picture with Alf. Chrissy thought there was a good chance we'd see a lot of Pennywises from the movie It. And that sounded like a good guess to me. I was like, yeah, there should be a lot of Pennywises. That's like the latest newish hit genre movie. And then for the longest time, we didn't see any. And then finally, after a while at the con, we saw about 5.
Maybe they're taking a while putting their costumes on.
Yeah, maybe it took them a while to put their costumes on. Some of them were pretty well done. What else was good? Let me think. Saw a good Captain Marvel. I saw a couple good Ghost Riders. You know, you see a lot of the same thing at every Comic-Con. You see Harley Quinn. You see Poison Ivy. You see, of course, you know, Spider-Mans and Supermans and lots of Batman. Lots of Batman. And then a lot of, like, Japanese anime characters that I'm not really clear on who they are. Anyway, it was good. I love the cosplay stuff. It just sort of adds to the uniqueness of a convention. I'll tell you something. I started going to comic conventions in the late 80s. And cosplay was rare. It was always a part of every convention. There's no question that you saw people dressed up. But not as many as you see now. This is some funny stuff there. Sigamig says his cousin is here. Jesus says real men fight with broom. Well, I did see a really great cosplay of Noob Noob from Rick and Morty. He's a janitor on Rick and Morty, and I really liked that, actually. I thought that he looked great. Anyway. So Noob Noob was a highlight for me personally. What's my best cosplay? I don't think I've ever tried to put together an outfit, guys and gals. I'm sorry, I just have not been brave enough or talented enough yet. Ultraman would be cool to cosplay, says Cheddar Monkey. Yeah, probably. Probably so. I don't think I saw any Ultraman cosplay things, but I did see Ultraman merchandise. There was Ultraman merchandise. Pretty famous character. Gad Ramon says, how's the life? You know, hanging in there. Hanging in there, man. Keeping busy. Keeping too busy. Because in addition to doing my weekly videos, which I'm not stopping even though I went to New York, I'll still have a full new episode this week. In addition to that, and in addition to doing these live streams of drawing every day, I'm also curating daily horror movie reviews over at therobotspajamas.com, because that's something I started up like 4 years ago. Just a daily horror movie review every day by guest writers. So I'm corralling all those people and formatting that stuff and making sure it gets posted in time. It's so many. It's a lot of personal projects when you put work and this trip on top of it. So life is okay, but life is busy. The comic book guy says he likes my bowling shirts. Well, thank you. That was very intentionally something that I decided I would wear in most episodes, just as sort of a bit of a hallmark or something, just something to keep some similarity, some uniformity to the show. So I'm glad you enjoy them. I pretty much only wear them for the show. And obviously I rotate through, you know, like 6 or 7 of them pretty regularly, but yeah, I like them too. I don't know. It's not really what I wear in day-to-day life. I like them though. Boy, I hope this comes out okay. I like Game of Thrones. I want to try to do it justice. I'll lay in some of what I'm doing here, and then I'm going to just sort of keep bouncing around on different parts. Let's see. Wonder if anyone ever cosplays as Stan Lee, asks Geek Workshop. Definitely. I haven't seen any this time, but I've definitely seen Stan Lee cosplays before. No question. It's not too hard. You just sort of get a sweater vest and, yeah. That's about it. Glasses. For those blue blocker style glasses. Brave, 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 brave Sir Robin. That's stuck in my head now. That's gonna be stuck in my head for quite a while. Sorry, I know this angle, I'm covering up the artwork a lot of times when I do it, so that's part of also why I'm trying to sort of bounce around, is so that I'm not covering stuff up the whole time, but there's only so much I can do with just my iPhone and a lampshade as my live stream setup, so it's this or nothing. Chris is a busy boy. Thank you, McNuggy. I am. Comic Book Guy says, will you ever do a comic tropes on Saturday morning cartoon comics? Probably. Probably. Do I have an idea right now for how I'd approach it? No. Do I want to do something like that? Absolutely. So, just be semi-patient. Can only do one a week, basically. So, someday I might be able to do more. Do you remember when anime manga started popping up in America? I remember late 80s starting to see some of it. Well, no, you know what? Let me back up. Growing up, there was some on TV. I forgot for a second, but there was Guy King. There was Voltron. There was Battleship something. Yamato. So there was anime on TV at a certain point in the 70s and 80s, dubbed and kind of changed. And then it started sort of like their movies and stuff like that would like get imported. I would say late 80s, early 90s, it started to become much more common. Like you could actually find it at video stores. Stuff that wasn't shown on TV. So took a while. Took a while. That's the best of my recollection. I remember seeing the movie Akira, early 90s. I don't remember the exact year, I just remember it was definitely the early 90s. Because I definitely saw it, I definitely saw it before I graduated college. I knew all about anime before college. What else? Anja says, please do a show on intercompany crossover tropes. It's an interesting idea. I probably will. Although it's so common, so infrequent that I don't know if you could say that they do have tropes. Let me give that some thought. Well, you know what? Excuse me. I was for a minute only thinking of Marvel and DC superhero crossovers, but there have been a lot of crossovers between other companies with like Ninja Turtles or Spawn or something visiting other places. So let me give that some thought. I'll give it some thought. Favorite childhood comic? I'd probably still say Transformers. It wasn't very good, but it was something that I was really into as a kid, and then that transition to G.I. Joe, which I think actually was a pretty good comic for the most part. Throughout the 80s, it was really good. So I still have a lot of nostalgia for those. I think yeah, those are some important ones for me. What else? I watched it primarily on German TV stations by cable when I was young. Some adult stuff, not series for youngsters. Oh, okay. Yeah, we all probably got into anime and manga pretty young. In high school, before the internet, you had to know someone with anime vids. That's pretty much true. The only way to discover it was through other people. I remember I discovered a store in Boston in the early 90s, and it was called Anime Crash, and all it did was sell import VHS tapes and eventually, like towards the end of its life, DVDs, but mostly VHS tapes, from Hong Kong and Japan. Mostly anime from Japan, and a lot of action movies and crime movies from Hong Kong. So I discovered Jackie Chan pretty early too. Was a big fan of him, and you know, if you discovered him in the early 90s and you were watching the stuff that he'd come out with from like, you know, the mid 80s into the early 90s, he was amazing. Like he had very few bad movies up through the mid 90s. It's been a while since he's had a really good movie. It's been a long time, really, but man, his output when he was in Hong Kong was fantastic at a certain point in time. How would you recommend getting into anime? Probably through reviews or recommendations of stuff that's good. I would say, what would I say is some of the best? I think Akira is pretty seminal for what it accomplished, both in animation and story. It's a little confusing because it condenses a really massive manga into movie, but it does make sense. You just have to be patient and maybe watch it more than once. These days, I think Cowboy Bebop was a TV show that like had a fantastic beginning, middle, and end. It's not too much of an undertaking to get into, and it rewards you for getting all the way through. FLCL is pretty strong, and that's only 4 episodes. The first Ghost in the Shell movie was really good, animation-wise at least. It's been a while since I've really been into anime, so you know, some of my memories of like what's really good and stuff, I'm a little spotty. I'd have to be reminded. Anyway, I'm sure that there's other recommendations going on right now in the room from stuff that people enjoy. So look for like certain names to like repeat and pop up again and again. And if they pop up enough times, you're like, okay, there's a reason people like this. It's worth trying. I'll tell you something. It was really hard in the like sort of late 80s, early 90s to get into anime because there was no internet with like reviews, you know, so and there wasn't even really any sort of book that you could turn to that would say this is good, skip this. So you just sort of like have to guess. You'd have to read the cover, read the back, and sort of make up your own mind. And I have to admit, I got burned a lot in like the early to mid 90s on some anime that I did not care for, and I kind of got out of it for quite a while because I got myself burned too many times. And I knew that it was just luck of the draw, but it was like I just didn't know what to try. I'd read a lot of, seen a lot of like really crappy movies with subpar animation and just stories that I was not into. So it was a really tough time to get into it back then. Woe is me, right? Woe is me. Full Metal Alchemist is a recommendation. Mark Bariner says, I hear good things about Mr. Chan's new movie, The Foreigner. Yeah, I agree. That thing has a great trailer. Good actors in it, good premise, and it isn't like relying on, you know, Jackie just being a goofy guy or just doing like, you know, some sort of Chinese historical movie or something, because a lot of those kind of stink actually. And he's working with a good director. He's working with the guy that did GoldenEye and Casino Royale. It's not like Martin Campbell has made every movie fantastic, but overall, he's a pretty dependable director. So I think working with a good director is one of the most important things Jackie could be doing right now, is just working with good directors. And we'll see. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is fun, says CSNG. Don't know about that one. Have you seen Ninja Scroll? Was one of the first animes I saw in the 90s. Haven't really seen others quite like it. Akira was great too. That's from Plum Dog. I did see Ninja Scroll back in the day, and you know what? I think I only saw it once, and I don't really remember it too. I mean, I remember the animation was really good. I remember that it was just almost nothing but wall-to-wall action, and if I'm remembering right, it was pretty gory too. But beyond that, I don't know that I really remember that many details about it. No, it's not really... The details aren't coming back to me for the most part. Sorry, looking for a pen. This might work. Bleeding Steel is next, one of Jackie's good ones this year, I think. I guess I didn't know about Bleeding Steel. I'll have to look into that, because, like I say, I sincerely love Jackie Chan. I really do. I don't know. He's an entertainer through and through. He just wants to entertain, and he's earned a lot of goodwill from me for stuff like, you know, the police story movies, like 1 through 4 anyway, and what else did I love? What was the 2-part series he did as like an adventurer, Chinese sort of Indiana Jones? Armor of the Gods, those 2 were good. Project A 1 and 2 were good. Miracles was good. Let's see. Oh, Shirley says, I'm trying to watch you, and Chrissy's shooting words at me. Chrissy, are you playing Words with Friends with your mother?
I was trying to, but she kept taking her turn before it was her turn to take her turn.
Well, I don't know if you heard that, Shirley. Chrissy says that you were taking your turn too quickly. This is great. I'm trying to draw here. I've got an audience, and my fiance and mother-in-law are having a conversation about words with friends. How dare you two? It's a good thing I love everybody here. Bet you didn't expect such an intimate peek into my life, folks. My mother-in-law is Shirley. She's fantastic. I love you, Shirley. And she's doing me a humongous favor by house-sitting because I have a kitty who became diabetic. So she needs shots twice a day of insulin. And that is not the easiest thing to deal with. So I am very, very lucky to have such a wonderful family. I appreciate it. And I owe you an amazing souvenir from New York. Nights in Shanghai Noon were great. You know what? I did like Shanghai Nights and Shanghai Noon. I mean, Jackie was a little older at that point in time, so I didn't expect necessarily quite the same in terms of martial arts, but it was funny. It was a good movie. Yeah, I think that he enjoyed working with Owen Wilson a lot more than he enjoyed working with Chris Tucker as far as his sort of American movies go. But that's just a guess. Who knows? That's just a guess. Ninja Scroll had very interesting monsters with unique powers, like rock skin, guy who moves inside shadows, beehive, poison, insect, etc. Have seen similar stuff since that, such as Naruto and something called Jutsus. I don't know that. I haven't watched Naruto, and I don't know if it's Naruto Jutsus or if Jutsus is a separate show. I am not familiar. But you know what's a little bit similar, although slightly more grounded, is a great comic book called Blade of the Immortal. Blade of the Immortal is about this feudal era samurai who gets cursed with the ability to heal from just about anything. Kind of like Wolverine, but almost Wolverine on steroids. And the only way he can remove this curse, because he's really like down and out, he has no direction in life, he's masterless, he's a Ronin, really. The only way he can eliminate the curse is, I think, by killing like 1,000 evil men. think it was 1000. And he eventually comes across this girl, Ren, whose father ran a dojo, and who was killed by like some really bad samurai. And so the main samurai, Nanji, agrees to help her and hunt them down. And it was just made into a live-action movie by Takashi Miike, who's done a lot of amazing movies like, Audition, DOA, 13 Samurai. I'm sorry, I'm looking for a particular pen. Anyway, could be good. Have not seen the movie yet. Very eager to. And the guys that he goes up against, the evil samurai, all sort of seem to have not exactly a power always, but something that really makes them unique, and that includes like some very creative weaponry by the writer-artist, whose name currently eludes me, but we live in the age of Google, so you should be able to figure it out without too much of a problem. Blade of the Immortal. But that's just something I like. Your mileage may vary. I didn't get that line quite right. That's okay. I was probably going to make this a metallic shadow anyway. I'll get my hand out of the way in just a sec. Jutsus, that's basically special ninja skills which border on magical abilities. Oh, okay. What did you think of the rumors about a new Fantastic Four comic? I haven't heard anything definitive, but I think that it's going to happen. I think that Marvel's ready to bring back the Fantastic Four. Yeah, Disney probably puts a little pressure on them not to write too much new material that could be used in like movies and stuff. They want to get back those film rights, but at the same time, I think that they legally have to keep publishing that title every once in a while to retain all their trademarks and copyrights. So I think that it's about time. I think that they'll come back soon, and I can't wait. I like Fantastic Four quite a bit. When it's done well, it's some of Marvel's best stuff. I like Jonathan Hickman's run quite a bit, to be honest. I liked his run. He was the last guy to write it before they went into Secret Wars and laid it to rest for quite a while. It's kind of weird to think that it's been a while since Secret Wars happened. That feels so new sometimes, but no, it's been a while. It's been a while. So yeah, I think it'll come back soon. TARDIS Writer says, I don't know much Japanese stuff, but Lone Wolf and Cub is great, and so are the movies. You know what? I've never seen the Lone Wolf and Cub movies. That would be interesting. I would really like to see those. I'll consider that a recommendation. I'll have to get around to seeing that. Have you watched Riverdale? Yeah, actually I have, Comic Book Guy. I like Riverdale. I think... Did I do my Archie Comics review right before Riverdale debuted? I must have. So I did tune in out of curiosity, and I actually liked it. It's not at all like even the rebooted Archie. It's I mean, it's got like, you know, murder mystery aspect to it. That's way darker than Archie generally goes. But I kind of liked it. I thought that the actors were all pretty good. Yeah. You know what? Now that I think of it, I don't think I finished watching the entire season. I missed like maybe 2 episodes at the end. So I keep sort of meaning to catch up with it on Netflix because it's on there now. I haven't yet. I like Riverdale, yeah. I like Archie in general. I've never been a guy that reads Archie regularly, but when I have, I like it. My sister would sometimes read various Archie comics because I got comic books and she sort of wanted to share an interest with me, so she would read Wonder Woman, she would read Archie, and after I finished reading my stuff and I wanted more comics to read, I would frequently read hers. Yeah, I like Archie. Let's see. Anja says, Studio Ghibli movies are awesome. Completely agree. Completely agree. I was lucky enough to visit the Studio Ghibli Museum in Japan. I visited their museum, and it was gorgeous. It was just so beautiful, so amazing. They first take you into their own special movie theater, and you see a short movie that they haven't released. You can only see them there at the museum, and they give your ticket is a cell frame from one of their movies. It's gorgeous. It's quite a wonderful, lovely memento, and they take you through every step of their process. There's like rooms that you go through that are set up to look like the rooms of the background painters, and the rooms of the writers, and the rooms of the actual animators, and they teach you about the history of animation and how it works, and they show you xenotropes and stuff. Oh, it was magical. It really was a lovely place. So yes, I love Studio Ghibli movies. Let's see. Do you think they should sell comic books at grocery stores like they do with Archie comic books? Yes, of course. Absolutely they should. Here's why they don't. They're too expensive. Comic books at grocery stores were impulse items when they were affordable. And the Archie comics are still affordable because it's like a digest where you get a ton of stuff. And it's still, I don't know what it is. It's been a while since I looked, but we'll say $5 or $6, you know? Maybe I'm wrong, but it's something reasonable. It's something reasonable. And yes, it should be at grocery stores so that new readers and kids and their parents are exposed to them, but it will only end up in those stores if they're affordable. And to be affordable, they need to figure out a better system of production, whether that's just somehow getting it in more places so that they have economies of scale in their production, or they use a different quality of printing and printer paper. So yeah, they just need to figure that out. The mainstream publishers do. If they ever want to try to hook the next generation, you need to go where people are, and one place that people have to be is a grocery store, because we all need to eat. So it makes sense for it to be in convenience stores and drugstores and food stores, grocery stores, but they're not. And that's a big problem. That's a big failure, in my opinion. That's a big failure. Gad says that he tried to share comics with his little brother, but he never took to it. Oh, they're not for everybody. Or, you know what? I guess I don't believe that. I do think that comics are for everybody, but you have to give them the right story for them. And that's the trick, isn't it? Like figuring out what story is going to resonate with a certain person. Because you can tell any kind of story in a comic book. Anything. So the trick isn't just recommending something good, but something good that they would like. And that can be very tricky. That can be very tricky. Never give up. He may take to it someday. Never give up. TARDIS Rider says, the lone wolf and cub movies are usually called the baby cart movies in English. That makes sense. And the official US release, called Shogun Assassin, is the first two edited together. I will keep that in mind. Thank you. I would like to see those. I don't know if they're good or bad, but the premise is cool, and I would like to see that. That sounds awesome. Thank you for the details. I need to buy some more pens, because some of these brush pens are not in great shape at this point. Walmart has Marvel and DC comic packs. I didn't know that. I actually did not know that. I've never noticed that in a Walmart, that they sell those. I wonder what they put together as sort of intro comics for people.
Want to try this pen I got today?
Sure.
It's not quite a brush pen, but it's
What you got?
It says it's like a soft tip.
Alright, Chrissy just said that if I want, I can use this new pen that she bought today at Comic-Con. It's a Pentel, and I do generally like Pentels, so let's see. What's today's word? Sword. Oh, alright. Yeah, this has some good control on it. By default, it does have a somewhat thick line, but you can make it even thicker, so yeah. Let's give this a shot. Let's give this a shot.
Here's the package if you want.
Sign pen brush, flexible point. It's for drawing and washes. Oh, so you could, works like a watercolor in pen, as in it's blendable. So if I had like a watercolor or something, I could do this in grays and sort of control what I want to do. Oh, that's interesting. That would be fun. Boy, that's something that I don't think I'll have a chance for during Inktober necessarily, but I would love to someday learn how to do a good job with what do you call it, with a watercolor pen, or just watercolor in general. Yeah, this isn't bad at all. I like it.
They have some other colors if you want to add some colors.
That could be fun. Apparently these come in other colors.
There's more colors.
What else are people saying? I bought my son an Archie Digest recently, $5.95 if I recall correctly. That's
Expensive.
that's not expensive. That's like,
Oh, really?
it's like 5 or 6 comics at least.
Digests. Yeah, but they're little. They used to be $1.
They used to be $1?
Yeah. Well, in the early 90s.
Okay, still. You know that. $1, wow.
I sound like an old person.
Me too. But that's the problem. I mean, $5 for like a comic that you'll finish within half an hour, that is a tough value to justify. Milo hears your voice, wants to know where you are. Hey, kitty cat. I'm not there. Confusing my poor kitties. That is adorable. I miss them. My cats calm me down. There. Great. I'm a cat nerd. I'm a cat nerd. Boy, the prompt was sword, so I thought I'd be focusing a lot more on the sword, and instead I'm just having a lot of fun with sort of costume details on Jon Snow. I'm just sort of trying to come up with stuff that makes sense. Sorry, every once in a while I go quiet because I'm drawing. Have you seen the Spider-Man Japanese TV show? Asks Comic Book Guy. Absolutely, I've seen it. I think it's fantastic. Spider-Man. I've used that opening theme song once or twice in my episodes that have Spider-Man in them. It goes, yeah, 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 wow! It's pretty great. It's pretty great. Will you be uploading your Inktober drawings? I mean, maybe. I'm mostly just doing the live stream, and if whatever I finish within an hour is whatever I finish. I'm not really going back and doing much to them beyond that, but, you mean posting it anywhere? I hadn't thought about it. There's not really a lot of demand for my art, I don't think. But that said, I do every once in a while get a paying freelance gig, so I'm not trying to like just insult myself. I was just trying to be realistic. Hadn't thought that there'd be a lot of interest in that, but maybe. Where is... Ah, this is what I'm looking for. I'll jump back, but McNuggy says that he'd like to see more of my art. Well, that's nice of you, McNuggy. If you didn't hear, I have done a couple comics before. They're all anthologies that I just have done stories in, but you can find Trickster or Colonial Comics Volumes 1 and 2. I've done stories in all of those comics. So that's out and about. And then I have pinups in a bunch of old comics, like the first few Invincibles. I think I have some pinup art in. Not the trade paperbacks, but the actual individual issues. And then the Super Patriot series that Robert Kirkman and Corey Walker did together. I'm pretty sure I did a piece for that. That was a long time ago at this point, I guess. Yeah, 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 wow! Yeah, yeah, wow. I can't sing, can I? I can't carry a tune. Oh, there's a question here from Plum Dog that I missed. What does he ask? He says, what do you find is the most affordable way to get comics? Trade paperbacks, or is digital better these days? I think it's close. Digital, here's where digital is better. Digital is cheaper after something has been out for a little while. They'll cut deals. You can get like back issues really cheap. You can't get like current modern stuff cheaper that way. Cheapest for that is usually still trade paperbacks. They'll sometimes cut out at least a few bucks getting a trade paperback. That's what I've noticed. All right, what else is... musically better than the US version of the 70s. Gears of Gores is talking about the Japanese Spider-Man versus the terrible American CBS version. Yeah, that was not a treat, really. Even in the day and age where we didn't get many superhero adaptations like that, Spider-Man wasn't really anything special. Oh, McNuggy says I'm a she, by the way. Had I called you? That was a terrible assumption of me. Jeez. I apologize. You can see that, like, if I'm not thinking, I still have assumptions. I sincerely try to avoid that. And yet I still make those mistakes. I hope you can accept my apologies. Wow. Cheddar says, your inking skills are better than a lot of people nowadays. Well, I don't think that they're better than anybody at a place like Marvel, but thank you. Inking is starting to become a little bit of a lost art in comics. I think that these days, you know, it's assumed that if you just ask the artist to ink their own stuff, or if they just sort of digitally darken their pencils into hard line art, that's good enough. I guess every once in a while it might be, but yeah, I think it's sad to see that inking is not quite as respected in the comics industry as it used to be, and it's probably a problem. It'll lead to flatter artwork that isn't as exciting. We shall see what happens there. The Japanese seem to still respect inking, but they have a completely different methodology for creating comics than we do. Completely different. There are assistants there still for like backgrounds, for patterns, for certain technical details. I'd love to see you do a tropes on folks like Herb Trimp, Jim Aparo, Kurt Swan. Well, I probably will, Mark. I probably will, because I definitely respect all three of those guys. I think that they can be a little bit overlooked. I think of the three of them, I want to say, I hope that a lot of people still know who Kurt Swan was, because he really kind of came up with a definitive look for Superman for a long time. But you know, I shouldn't make that assumption. I think that there are some things that I and other comic book fans know, and I take it for granted that everyone knows it. So we'll see. Those are three artists I would absolutely love to discuss on the show at some point. And I just try to sort of, you know, stagger whether I'm doing old stuff, new stuff, American stuff, foreign stuff, funny stuff, good stuff. You know, I just try to like vary it up. But that's definitely something I'm into. Comic Book Guy says he's reading cool old Disney comics. Are you talking about the ones by like Dell? Yeah, there's definitely a lot of good old Disney comics, especially anything by oops, I'm blanking on a name. Old man alert. Is it Carl Barks? Yeah, Carl Barks. I was thinking of the Donald Duck and Scrooge McDuck stuff. So Carl Barks, fantastic stuff. Good art, funny stories, not just quick gags, like actually stories with characters that you get invested in what happens with them. That stuff's great. What else? Geek Workshop says Marvel Unlimited is a cheap way to get into comics. Very, very true. I think that the Marvel Unlimited app is pretty good. I think, I forget the last cost. It's something close to $100 for a year. And you don't get to keep those comics, but you can read as much as you want, and they have digitized an enormous amount of their library from the 60s through today. Everything that comes out today, just with a delay, like it comes out like about 4 to 6 months later, but they have a tremendous backlog of their own comics, so you can read really long runs. Anyway, I wish every publisher sort of did that, or even better, if it was somehow one publisher where you could buy that deal from multiple publishers. That would be nice. Dude, have you seen the Marvel stuff lately? Says Gad Ramon. Some of it. Not everything. I'm not up to date with everything. Did you have an opinion on something in particular? Because I think some of it's good, but I don't read a lot of it. I like stuff that other people aren't as into. There's not a lot of Marvel stuff that I read these days, to be honest. There's not. But I do personally enjoy Dan Slott's Spider-Man. So that's one of the few every several months I catch up on my backlog. And I've read a bunch of Jason Aaron's Thor. I like that. Do you like Before Watchmen comics? I didn't read them. I had a hard time sort of coming to terms with the idea that DC was doing that, despite, Alan Moore really wishing that they didn't. Yeah, some of the people involved in the comics gave their blessing, obviously, because obviously Alan Moore didn't do everything. I believe Dave Gibbons was okay with it. He was the artist, and a bunch of them were written by Len Wein, who was the editor for the first 7 or 8 issues. So they were okay with the idea, but something bothered me about basically Alan Moore had created this stuff. He didn't want there to be more stories. I don't know, it doesn't matter if it's good at that point. I just didn't really feel comfortable supporting that myself. No, I don't blame anyone for working on it or enjoying it, but it did sort of bother me. It just didn't stick. I don't know. So no, I didn't read it. Maybe I'm being a dork. Maybe I shouldn't care about that stuff. I don't know what to say. Obviously, I have no stake in it, but it bothered me. Marvel Unlimited is $70 a year. Alright, honestly, that seems like a totally fair price, because you can read a lot of comics. Yeah, it says for over 20,000 comics a year. Hey, Geek Workshop, have you secretly been a Marvel plant this whole time, pretending to enjoy my channel just so that you could promote your dirty, dirty Marvel comic books? Is that what's going on here? Once again, the big corporate Marvel comes in and uses the little guy to sell his wares. Well, you fooled me. You fooled me this whole time. Comic Book Guy says, I don't like digital comics. I like flipping through pages. You know what, Comic Book Guy? I personally far prefer the physical experience of flipping pages, being able to easily flip back if I'm interested in something that happened earlier, if I want to just sort of like look at some old art, it's easier to physically flip a few pages. And I like, even honestly, the smell of comics. I really do. But here's what happened with me, is I got tired of lugging around a lot of comic books. I did. I got tired of lugging them all around. And so I kind of prefer digital now. It's easier for me to pick up and put down, and I don't have any more clutter in my house. It was important. It was important to just have less stuff. It just got to a point where it was important to me. So that's why I read a lot of digital comics these days. I just want to have less physical stuff. There's nothing I have against physical comic book copies in any way. If it was up to me, I would far prefer to have them in that format all the time. I saw your vid on Valerian. Sadly, I can't find the books, says Comic Book Guy. Huh. I've seen them in plenty of comic book stores. But I believe that they're also on Amazon, the trade paperbacks. Not really rare. They shouldn't be, anyway. What do you think of the Injustice comic books? Haven't read them. Sorry. Do not know about those. I hear the games are fun, but that's all I know. I do know that I think it was Ford had an Injustice car on the showroom floor today. Was that Ford?
Chevy.
Oh, it was Chevy. It was Chevy. And I was just like, oh, okay, great. The official car of Injustice. What does that mean? Do any of you guys remember when the original Thor movie came out? There was a car commercial, and I can't remember which manufacturer it was anymore, but we'll just say Honda. It wasn't Honda, I don't think, but we'll just say that. And they were like, the new Honda. It's powerful, it's affordable, and it's the official car of Thor the movie. And I was like, what does that mean? What does that mean, the official car of Thor the movie? That doesn't mean anything. Because they didn't, like, nobody drove whatever that car was in the movie. They were just the official car of the movie, not the official car in the movie. They were just the official car of the movie. And I was like, what are you talking about? Look it up. Seriously, look it up. Just like look up like Thor movie car, and I bet you'll find it. It made no sense. Comic Book Guy says, I can't get out because of an illness. LOL. Alright. Look on Amazon. You should be able to find those Valerian comics, if you're curious. I'm positive they were on Amazon. And there's probably some good comic book retailers out there that sell online, right? I don't know. That was a question before, and I couldn't think off the top of my head who's doing a good job at that these days. Let's see what else. In Japan, they did an anime series about Valerian Laureline. That's true, they did. I don't think they adapted much. They only adapted sort of like that first story of him meeting Laureline back in medieval France. And I don't know whether it was good or not. I've seen clips. The animation looked good, but I don't know if they kept to sort of the tone and all of the comics. I don't know. What are the dumbest comics you have read? Well, I tend to share them, so dumbest. Combo Man was pretty heinous. What else was bad? I always thought that Super Pro, NFL Super Pro, was really bad. Just the idea behind it. There's a lot of Golden Age comics that I will review at some point when I just feel like I haven't done anything funny in a while and I don't have a good idea. I've got a good backlog of those. I generally just don't like promotional comics. There's some in the 70s selling computers with Superman, Wonder Woman and stuff. I'll probably discuss those at some point soon. Those were pretty bad. Boy, I don't know. What are some of the worst? Oh, and then there's just, you know, guys who I personally don't care for their current work that much. Like, you know, I'll definitely be one of the first to say that I liked Rob Liefeld's stuff when I was a kid. I liked his New Mutants. I liked his X-Force. I liked that stuff as a kid. I don't really care for the stuff he creates these days. Basically, as soon as he got to Image, I started losing interest in everything that he did. He just sort of repeated himself a lot, and my tastes in artwork changed. So those are some of the things that I think are some of the dumbest. What did you think of the Valerian movie? I didn't love it. I didn't like it too much at all, to be honest. I thought that it had a couple interesting segments. I didn't think it was too loyal to the spirit of the comics, honestly. I really didn't. I thought that there were a lot of missed opportunities there.
Did that movie have Tom Cruise?
No. So ultimately, just not for me. Well, you know what? I just realized that Chrissy got me a new pen, and I'm thinking that I might call this illustration complete, but touch up last night's where I made a mistake that's been really bothering me. I'm trying to just move on and accept that, you know, it's just not going to be always what I want. You know, none of these drawings are quite what I want, but just trying to get better. It's a type of correction pen, so I'm gonna use that in a sec to correct a mistake from last night. See how that tool works. I think that that's more or less what I was going for with this one. I mean, yeah. I thought I'd be focusing a little bit more on the sword here, but whatevs. I ended up having more fun doing sort of like the fur and the leather and stuff like that. Overall, I made this hand too chunky, you know, I made a lot of mistakes. But I had fun with this one. Yeah. Not bad. For me. There were some questions. Acura. Cheddar Monkey looked it up. Acura. Acura. And it's the official car of Thor, the movie. Such a stupid commercial. I literally have looked it up before and just laughed at it, even though I already know what's coming. That cracks me up. And he says, having fun is what it's about. Comic book guy says, looks like Highlander. You know what? I see that. I totally see that. Jon Snow does wear, you know, leather. He wears black sort of fur cloak over this stuff. And his sword is, you know, Valyrian steel. But you say that, and I'm like, yeah, this does look a little bit like Highlander. Hopefully the darker hair and the more prominent, what would you call it, facial hair helps differentiate it a little. But you're right, it does sort of look like Highlanders. That's Christopher Lambert does that weird laugh in the movie at some point. He just goes, sounds like a creep, even though he's the hero. It's a kind of magic. How do you draw hands? They are the hardest part for me. Well, obviously I don't always do a good job. I don't think that these hands are great examples. I try to break it into shapes, to be honest. Here, where's my pencil? If I'm going to just draw a hand, you know, I've sort of got somewhere between a rectangle and a trapezoid as the main part of the hand. And then, of course, each of the fingers are their own segmented rectangles. You know, I can just do that for each of them. Yeah, that's okay. And then the thumb can throw me sometimes. I try to do it something like that. And even there, I guess I made the thumb too big, probably. So, you know, I just know that I have trouble with hands like that. So then I try to correct it as best I can. But yeah, it's all about sort of breaking up those shapes and then understanding the underlying skeletal structure and going from there. Hopefully that helps a little bit. Godlemon says, my Inktober today is shy. Are you in a different country or something? I don't know. I looked at the Inktober 2017 prompts, at least I thought. So I'm in the US, if you couldn't tell by my accent. And the prompt that I saw was sword, so that's what I used. And you know what? If I got it wrong, that doesn't bother me. I'm just using the prompt as a starting point, not like as a hard and fast rule. Let's see. Highlander laughed underwater. Yeah, he did, didn't he? Alright, so I'm going to go back and correct a mistake that I made yesterday. You may remember, if you were watching, I drew a little sketch of Elongated Man, and there was a mistake that I wanted to get rid of. And I had a white gel pen that I tried to erase this with, and that did not work. But this is a corrective pen, and if I draw lightly with it, it seems like it's incredibly responsive. So a white correction pen can be a tremendous tool, not just for fixing mistakes like this. Like that pretty much cleaned that up. And if I had any further big issues, obviously I could fix it in Photoshop these days. Back in the day, artists didn't have Photoshop, so they had to either redraw it or try to correct it with whiteout. So this is a Pentel product. It's called a Presto Fine Point Jumbo Correction Pen, and it seemed fairly pressure sensitive, so I could just sort of do that pretty lightly, and I think that looks a little better. Here you go. It's for me? Oh, this is for me.
And then tomorrow is shy.
So anyway, so that worked. That was good. So back in the day, you know, they had to get used to using whiteout, but they used to only have brushes. Nowadays we have pens, which is a lot more control. And this stuff is great for, like, if you're drawing somebody like Ghost Rider or Venom, somebody like that that has a lot of black in them, and then you want to sort of like add streaks of white to break that up. I think that that's a great use for it. If you're drawing space, outer space, and then you want to put in some really tiny dots, you can do that too. I just realized I never drew the spider on the back of Gwenom when I did that for the day that I did Divided. So I'm going to quickly, I've got my computer here, and I'm going to look up Spider-Man, Venom, and look at that symbol, and I'm gonna use this whiteout and see if I can add that to this Gwenom to sort of, like, you know, do a little fix. So I'm just looking for like a decent reference shot. Okay, I found one, and I'm gonna do that. Okay, so let's see. Aku says, "You're American?" I'm assuming that's a joke, because my accent, right? I mean, the only other thing, I guess you could say, like, Canadian, right? Like, technically I could be. I don't say enough, but maybe I'm Canadian, right? Shy is the next prompt after sword, says CSNG. Okay, so we're dealing with time zones, right? Today is still sword, at least in the US. Yeah. I'm currently in New York City. I'm on East Coast time, so that's what I'm dealing with. All right, let's see here. So there's the body. Oh, this is kind of working, folks. Something's coming together here. And then there's the thorax. I know I'm sort of blocking this with my hand. I'll get it out of the way in a sec. We sort of have the mandibles. Those are probably a little bigger than I meant to do, but I can then go over this again in black to fix that. And then the actual legs, which basically there's 4 on each side, and it'll go sort of like this, and up to there, and then they'll come around here. Yes, just a little bit. Down, over, down. Didn't do too good a job on that one. Let's do that. And down, and over. And again. Let's see. Ooh, this smells powerful, kind of alcohol-y. All right. So that's closer. That's closer to the symbol. Not quite. I need to let this dry, and then I'm going to touch it up with a black pen, because I'll have more control to sort of bring the lines in and make it look right. But not bad. Not bad. Before I would have had to use Photoshop or completely redraw this, and instead I was able to try it here. Let's see. Is this dry? Almost. It's drying, but it's not dry. Down here where I started, it sort of is. Yeah. Well, I like that. I like what I can fix with this. Not bad at all. I mean, it's not a perfect symbol because I didn't have much time to think it through, plan it out, but it's better than the nothing that was there before, I think. Probably should have been a little sharper line like that. So now I'll go in and fix that. Cool. Well, I like this. Obviously, I can do a bunch with that. Alright, if they are going to use the events of Thor 2 with Natalie Portman being possessed by the energy as an excuse to make her into female Thor, nah, Cheddar Monkey, I think that's really unlikely because I think that Natalie Portman, the actress, just wanted out of that series, so I would not expect her back. I think that she's just gone. And I think that if they ever decided to do the female Thor, I think that they just recast. That's what I think. That's what I think. Alright, folks, I think that's going to do it for tonight. I appreciate you all joining me, I really do. I'm going to give a shot at being here tomorrow night. It's hard to promise since I'm in New York and my schedule is very played by ear. I don't have everything locked in stone, but I'm going to try to do it every night at the same time. So hopefully I will be back here tomorrow, and I'm really having a great time chatting with all of you. Let's see. Mark says, you mentioned the Wizard forums the other day. Ever spend any time on CBR? Nope, not in the forums anyway. I've read some articles there. I've never played around in the forums. McNuggy says, thanks for streaming. Turned out really good. Thank you. Comic Book Guy says, this rocks. Appreciate it. Gurzagor says, bye. Mike L says, caught the very end. Yeah, he caught the end as I'm saying goodbye. Good night. Good night, CSNG. Good night, everyone that stopped by. Sincerely appreciate it. And, yeah, until then, until the next time, what do? We say keep reading comics. Good night.